Welcome everyone, I'm your host, Emerson Green. I used to think theism was overwhelmingly improbable, given the weight of the evidence against it. There's quite a lot to suggest that the universe is utterly indifferent to good and evil, pain and pleasure, value and disvalue. I never saw the fingerprints of God on DNA, or the innards of cells, or the beginning of the universe, or strange events reported in human affairs taken to be miraculous. I do, however, seem to notice an absence of God in aimless forest fires, in merciless predation, and the unspeakable cruelty human beings have been known to inflict. And damning as that may seem, the evidence isn't all in favor of an indifferent universe. In some ways, we're quite fortunate. Suspiciously so, many have argued. The problem of evil nevertheless prevents me from venturing past a middle boundary, so I end up as an agnostic of some sort. It may prove to be an unstable position, but it's where the contradictory evidence of our world has left me for the time being. The question of God's existence necessarily involves evaluative, not merely descriptive, claims. I don't just mean ordinary normative epistemic judgments, which involve the weighing of evidence and the import of theoretical virtues like simplicity. Because God is said to be good, we can't evaluate the evidence for and against the theistic hypothesis while avoiding any moral judgments whatsoever. If we are to look out at the world and judge whether our expectations have been verified or violated, we cannot pretend that our understanding of the good has no bearing on our assessment of the evidence. God, the foundation of reality, our loving Heavenly Father of unsurpassable power and goodness, has allegedly created this world, your world, the world you see outside your window, the world you read about in biology textbooks. So how one understands the good directly influences one's evaluation of theism. So it's true that the kind, degree, and distribution of pain and pleasure in our world is evidence supporting an indifferent universe. I think Paul Draper showed that actually in the 1980s. But for me, there's something else blocking the road to theism. I can't shake the feeling that it would be wrong to believe, somehow. Becoming a theist would require a seal of approval on the suffering on earth. I would have to believe, for any instance of pain, or at least for pain in general, that it was okay that it occurred, all things considered, that it was not unjustified for an all-powerful God to permit or create. There's some sense in which theism demands approval of suffering that surely wouldn't be endorsed by the sufferer, not in every case. Theism asks too much of me. It asks me to betray and abandon every creature who suffered without reason. To affirm the truth of theism is to issue a moral judgment, not a merely descriptive one. And here's a trivial example. Typically, to affirm the truth of theism means affirming the existence of a God who had the power to prevent evil, but who chose not to, for whatever reason. This would imply that the evil was not intrinsically impermissible, meaning it would be wrong always and everywhere to permit such an evil from occurring. Since God, if he exists, permitted the evil to occur, a theist must affirm that the evil act was not impermissible to allow. An atheist has the freedom to reject this deontic judgment and embrace another one, while the theist does not. The affirmation of theism cannot be totally divorced from all moral considerations. Even those who would shy away from the stronger claim that a particular evil was intrinsically impermissible might still think there is, in reality, no reason to permit that particular evil. That is, they think God, if he exists, would have more reason to prevent that occurrence of evil than to permit it. So theists, to maintain the unsurpassable power and goodness of God, are obliged to maintain that good reasons for its permission exist, be they known or unknown to us. There's no escaping these kinds of moral judgments when one evaluates the truth or falsity of theism. Belief in God could never be a merely descriptive belief. Ultimately, the suffering on earth must come with a kind of endorsement and imprimatur of believers. But why would I offer mine? My seal of approval would be a betrayal. The adoption of theism would require me to look at the young child who dies in the house fire and say, in the end, it's okay that this happened to you. You see, your suffering is only a small part of an organic whole, the value of which is greater with your agony included. or fill in the blank with your preferred account of the suffering of children. Most attempts to explain evil are not merely absurd, but morally obtuse, if not outright perverse. In this context, being so made that I cannot believe is to be so made that I cannot betray every animal who burned alive, or whose skin was ripped from its bones by a predator driven by instinct. Nor can I abandon the predator who starves because it had no prey to terrorize. Am I to believe this natural order was designed by God, who has limitless power and is unsurpassably loving and just and merciful? Traditional theism, to be blunt, imposes a limit on how much one can care about the earth's suffering. If it's too vast, too random, and too senseless, then it can no longer be excused. Naturally, many theists who wish to resist the problem of evil diminish the significance of the evidence against their view. Unfortunately, the evidence in question is the pain of moral patience, so this has predictable effects on the moral faculties of those who sneer in the face of such evidence. As I explained in a recent video about my agnosticism, the majority of theists, I'm sorry to say, do not seem to appreciate the data that's in front of them. It's far more common to hear a disgustingly glib answer to the sufferers on earth from theists than it is to hear even an acknowledgement of the sheer moral weight of what they're trying to explain away. Along with Alvin Plantinga and many others, I think most attempts to explain evil from theists are shallow, flippant, and seem to betray an unwillingness to unwaveringly look at what their God permits, what he idly watches without intervention, what he apparently didn't think was worth preventing through the subtlest alterations to human psychology or the process by which we were created. Theism is too good to be true. Some theists are triumphalist, dismissive of any challenge to theism from evil. Others hang their heads, sheepish, but nonetheless convinced of the existence of an unlimited and morally perfect God. The latter group can at least see the tension. As one pastor put it to me, callous dismissiveness towards the suffering on earth is a sign of spiritual immaturity. I would add that it's sacrilegious, because the suffering on earth is sacred. Those who wish to explain evil away typically don't understand that the suffering on earth is sacred. They don't treat a bird with a broken wing with the reverence that it compels. That suffering bird is a thing of cosmic significance, and they don't see it. To dismiss the problem of evil as trivial betrays a moral unseriousness that's unworthy of small children, and exposes some of the more disturbing and pernicious effects that theism can have on the minds of those who can tolerate no perceived threat to God's goodness. The corruption of one's moral faculties is the terminus of all this. Tell me honestly that one's moral faculties have not been utterly vitiated when they can scoff at the agony of a confused animal, or laugh in the face of an atheist or a doubting believer shaken to his core by hundreds of millions of years of predation, starvation, fear, and death. Explaining evil away has the potential to make us worse people. Apologetics can bring about the degradation and the dimming of our moral sense. The suffering on earth is unfathomable, yet the triumphalist theist can overlook it. They can excuse it. But why should I? How could I overlook it and think that I haven't wronged those who have suffered pointlessly, those who would not endorse their suffering? The atheist asks, what about the fawn in the forest? What about them? The theist must answer. In the end, the suffering of the fawn is not significant enough to count for much against the existence of a good God who had the power to prevent it. I would owe the fawn in the forest an apology if I were to become a believer. I would have to beg for her forgiveness. Theism's demand, it seems to me, is to either close your heart or close your eyes. You can either stop caring or stop looking. Those are my options when it comes to the suffering on earth. On the one hand, I can excuse horrendous evil as no big deal, which seems wrong. It seems like a betrayal and abandonment of those who have suffered. Not to mention, becoming the kind of person who can excuse it as no big deal would be stultifying. It would be bad for me to dull my moral faculties to that point. Or I can just close my eyes and pretend it's not there. The answer is don't think about it. Just look at all the wonderful aspects of creation and sweep the rest of it under the rug. This route seems morally suspect for the same reasons as the first. So, stop caring, or stop looking. That's my choice. But how could I live with myself knowing that I'm doing one or both every moment I affirm the existence of God? Thank you for listening. I've been Emerson Green, and I'll see you next time.